Bienvenidos a Sobre Nuestro Macabro podcast. Yo soy Dee.
Yo soy Ali.
And this week we return to Edna, Texas, where we have an update on the Lizbeth Medina case.
In this week's episode, we'll be talking with Lizbeth Medina's mother, Jacqueline Medina, and her cousin Angie, as they share the story of Liz's life and the tragedy of her murder. Through their voices, you'll come to know who Liz was, what she meant to those who loved her, and gain a deeper understanding of the case from her family's perspective. If you like a refresher on the details of this case, you can revisit our episode 115. Let's begin. Advertencia: la información de este caso puede ser desencadenante para algunos. Tengan en cuenta que algunos de estos casos pueden involucrar menores de edad, abuso, violación o violencia. Escuchen con precaución.
Warning: the information on this case can be triggering to some. Please be advised that some of these cases may involve children, abuse, rape, and violence. Listen with caution.
For many families, the story doesn't end when the headlines fade. Today, we're speaking with Lizbeth Medina's family, who continue to advocate for justice and keep their loved one's story alive. Thank you both for being here and for trusting us with Lizbeth's story. If you would like, you can introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Medina, and I'm Lizbeth Medina's mom.
Hi, my name is Angela Soto, and I'm Lizbeth's cousin.
Lizbeth, since she was really, really little, she was always such a sweetheart. She was funny, goofy. She liked to make people laugh, and she loved with everything she had, and she always wanted to give others, like charity and all that kind of thing. Lizbeth was very, very ambitious. She was very shy when she was younger, between the ages, I want to say 8 and 12. And then she just started blooming into this beautiful, amazing teenager where, she started being more open, more goofy, more ambitious. She shared her dreams, which were, of course, being a nurse. She wanted to be... She wanted to be a lot. I remember I took her to get a certification for acrylic nails to do those things on the side. She wanted to do eyelashes. After she passed away, I found a notebook where she had written a whole bunch of her plans, and a few of them were making her own clothing line and just doing different things. She also wanted to do real estate. So she was just a box full of surprises.
Very ambitious, huh?
Yeah. And I still have some logos we had created together, different logos. She wanted to start her eyelash business at a very young age, and we came up a year before she passed. We came up with this logo, and it was Bonita Lashes, and we just have a whole bunch of them that I still have in my file saved somewhere. So hopefully one day I can share those with the world. But they're just beautiful memories where we sat together and we thought about we could do this, we could do that. What do you want to do? And she always knew I had her back and everything.
You both sound like you're very close, like you had a very strong bond.
Yes, we did. I had her when I was 16, so we basically grew up together. We went through a lot together, relationship-wise. She was always with me. Everything I went through, she was there with me. I lost a child when she was only 10 or 11, and I remember that hit her hard, and she went through that with me. And when I was in the hospital, I remember her saying, I'm not leaving you alone, Mom. I'm staying here with you. And I didn't want her to be there because, it was going to be an all-night thing. And she said, no, I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here.
That's so sweet. I mean, overall, I feel like the connection that you both had was that of just your support system overall. I feel like those type of relationships are very rare and very few, because I've read a few cases of different people and they never have that close connection to their mom like you do. And that was like very sweet.
Oh, they're like a great daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of felt like I needed to give her everything, not spoil her, because she wasn't that type of person who, was spoiled in a way or anything, but I gave her what she needed. And she always understood when there wasn't. I was a single mom. So when there wasn't enough, she always understood. She always was like, I get it, Mom, And so at a very young age, as soon as she turned 13, she wanted to start working. She wanted to start going. She wanted to start doing all kinds of things. She wanted her phone. She wanted a car. She just wanted to start building.
How was she, Angie, as a cousin to you?
I met Liz when I was probably 8 years old, and she must have been like 4 or 5, I think. And the reason how I met Liz, just because to clarify our relationship, Anna, Liz's aunt, is married to my uncle. And Anna also had her daughter very young, so she was very like young mom as well. And her and my uncle had been together forever. And so she would babysit basically me and Liz together. So everywhere my Aunt Anna went, and Liz was always just around. But for me, it was like I was a little older than them. I was at least I was significantly older, so I was kind of like also babysitting them alongside my aunt, and she was just so funny. She was so sweet, and like I was kind of explaining to you guys the last time we talked, is that for me, when I think of Liz, I don't picture her as a 16-year-old. I picture her as this little girl, and she was just the sweetest, the goofiest, the funniest. She was always keeping me on my toes because she was just so rambunctious, but in like the best way ever. Like she always wanted to go. She wanted to do things. And compared to my like other cousin Priscilla, she was just so much more feistier and like goofier. And that's just how I remember her, is just her smile. And how I was telling you guys too, of like she went through a phase where she didn't have like her front teeth for a little bit, so she just had her like, and it was just the funniest thing with like she was just the cutest. And for a long time it was just us three pretty much, when Jackie had to work and just doing obviously what she could as a single mom. Like I would be able to babysit alongside with my aunt, and it was for a lot of years and for like a lot of my formative years. So for me, I've always just looked at her as a little cousin. And then as she got older, I mean, we kind of obviously, as everyone does, kind of drift apart a little bit with me being in high school, and then just her growing up as well. We kind of did drift a little bit at the end there, but I was just so proud of the woman, like Jackie says, that she was becoming, because she was very shy when she was younger, and just to see her bloom and blossom. And I remember her just watching her quince videos and how just beautiful and how much she was coming into herself was very like a big cousin proud moment. And yeah, I mean, like I said, like Jackie said, she was just the sweetest, and she had so many dreams. And even if we weren't exactly always in touch, like I always was keeping up with her through my aunt, because my aunt was always just present as well. So she would just tell me like, oh, Liz is doing this, or she wants to do this. Or I remember she told me the first time that she was gonna go cheer and be a cheerleader. I'm like, that's totally Liz's vibe, and I can totally see that, like just her, just being a cheerleader. And I was just so excited for her. I remember when I saw her in July of that same year, the year she passed, just seeing how much she had grown, and like Jackie says, just grown into herself was crazy. And I was just so proud of her. And that's just how I remember, and I will always remember her. When all of this kind of went down, that's who I had in my mind, and that's maybe why it just hurts so much more, just because I think of her, of that little girl.
I forgot to mention about this little phase she went through. She was she wanted to be a fighter. And I always thought it was the funniest thing because she was such a sweetheart, but she was feisty. So I was like, okay, you want to box? So I put her in boxing for a while, and that was just a different side of her.
That's so crazy. I feel like especially like hearing that she was like very shy and very like, like very not spoken, but like she was very like timid. And then to just kind of want to go through the fighting phase, it's like interesting. It's like how things, how like it's wonderful because it's like her going into like just learning about herself, but still like trying to be, you know, trying to be another version of herself, but still be true to who she is.
Mhm.
It's to have people see that side of her. I love it.
I think it's important to like it's important to for us to highlight who she was, right? Because Liz is not the person that, you know, esta like última imagen que tienen de ella, that's not her. That is not her. And we have to remember her for who she was, no por la persona, you know, what this person did to her. Is remembering her for who she was and how much she meant to a lot of people, and that this is, you know, she was a very sweet person, right? So I think it's really, and thank you both for sharing these, you know, these memories of her and who she is, because that's important to remember. Well, I was gonna ask, I know you're both sharing a lot of like really nice like memory, like who she is. We have a question here that, you know, wanted to ask, Jackie, what's a memory of her that always makes you like smile? A memory, like one of those memories that you think of her, like that's like the first memory that comes into your head.
It would definitely have to be when we would play fight. Like she would just out of nowhere come and jump on me, and when I was in bed, or you know, I would wake up a little earlier than her and I would just sneak into her room and scream and scare her. Or you know, I have all those kinds of videos where we're just kind of being goofy with each other, and I remember that, and I miss it because we would make each other laugh, you know, and she always found the right moments when I needed it. So she was very, very funny, and that's what always comes to mind. I always try to remember the good things and the funny things so I can smile. You know, I don't like to remember the bad part of the story.
Which leads us to that question.
Yeah, can you share as much as you would like about what happened that day?
Yeah, of course. It started December 5th. I woke up, same routine every morning, getting ready for work. I was about to leave, and I had noticed she wasn't awake. She wasn't up yet. So I knocked on her door and I said, "Lizbeth, wake up." And she said, "Okay, hi boy," trying to wake up. And I went to the kitchen and started putting my lunch together. And I had realized she wasn't up yet. She didn't get up, go to the restroom like she always did or anything. So I was like, okay, she's not up yet. I went back and I opened the door again. I said, "Liz, get up." At this point, I had already annoyed her. So she's like, okay, I'm coming. Same routine, 6:15, I walked out the door, and that's the last time that I saw her alive. After that, you know, I figured she was going to have a very busy day because she was gonna have her Christmas parade, and it's always very busy as a cheerleader. She got to do her hair, her makeup, you know, keep up with it at school during the day. So I knew she was gonna be super, super busy during the day. So it wasn't weird that I didn't get a message from her. It wasn't strange that I didn't get a call from her. She would only call me when she needed something, or she would only text when she needed, like, "Hey mom, you know, can you send me some money?" Or "I'm gonna do this," or, you know, when she would ask permission for things. So I knew it was just a regular day. And people ask me all the time, "Well, how did you not hear about your daughter all day?" Like, usually when your kids are at school, they don't text you all day. So, I mean, that's something that people need to really understand. The day passed by and I was at work. I usually left around 5:30. That day I asked to get off a little bit earlier because the parade was at 5:30 and I wanted to make it on time. So I went ahead and I asked my supervisor at the time, you know, "Hey, we're not busy today. Can I leave a little bit earlier? My daughter has a parade." And my bosses were amazing and they said, "Yeah, go ahead." It was one of those days where anything that can go wrong was going wrong. Me and my friend got in a fight because I didn't call him when I said I was going to call him. And then right after that, was headed to the town where we were from. It was a 30-minute drive, and I realized I was on empty. So I had to stop and get gas. Now, mind you, I was already running a bit late, and I wanted to make it to the parade. She had asked me the day before, "Hey mom, are you going to be there?" So it was on my mind to make sure I was there on time. You know, she was expecting me there. I didn't want to let her down. And so I stopped. I remember exactly just pumping $10 just to make it, because I felt like if I pumped and filled up my tank, it was going to take more time. At that time, I just pumped $10 and I took off. I remember looking at the clock and I still had about 5-6 minutes. And the drive from my apartment to where the parade was going to be at was about a 3-minute drive. So I decided, well, let me go to the apartment, run in there, throw off my boots, because I do work in construction. I was muddy, I was dirty. And I said, let me throw off my boots, get me some sneakers or, leggings, whatever, and run to the parade. And that's exactly what I did. I ran inside the apartment, not even thinking, not even understanding why the door was open in the first place. It wasn't on my mind. I just ran. I was trying to get somewhere. So I went in there, threw off my boots, put on my leggings, and ran right out the door. Made it barely on time to watch the parade. At the time, I met up with a couple friends along with my daughter's friends there at the parade. And as it was getting dark, the parade started. And I remember just watching all the floats go by. And when they started going by, like the cheerleaders and everything, I didn't see Liz, but I was like, okay, it's dark. Maybe I didn't see her. Maybe she was on the other side. As a mom, you just don't think she's missing. And so I remember asking my friends, hey, did you guys see Liz? And they said, no, we didn't see her. Where's she at? And then her friends ran over to me and they said, hey, where's Lizzo? And I said, I didn't see her, so I guess you guys didn't either, right? And so I started dialing her phone number. I started texting her. The calls went straight to voicemail and I had no answer. I had like this hope that maybe she was towards the end of the parade, just because, sometimes they would stay towards the end of the floats so they can throw candies or things like that. I waited till the last float and nothing. That alarmed me. I got in my car and I went straight to the apartment. While I was driving over there, her friends called me and said, hey, whenever you find Liz, can you tell her to come to our house? We're gonna have pizza. We're gonna have a pizza party. And I said, yeah, I'll let her know once I find her. Well, I get to the apartment. As soon as I walk in, I start yelling her name and I say, Liz, where are you? Where are you? And nothing. I walk into her room. I slam the door open. And I remember even going next to her bed and just looking around and just saying, Liz, ¿dónde estás? ¿Dónde estás? Opening the bathroom door, nothing. And so I finally sat on my bed and I just started calling everybody I knew. I started calling her a lot of her friends, and then I called her coach. And once I called her coach, that's when I really started panicking, because I asked her, hey, where's Liz? Did she even go to the parade? And I asked her that because I wanted to know whether she was present at the parade, but yet I found out a little more. She said, no, she wasn't at the parade and she didn't even show up for school. And that's when I was like, I was in shock. I was like, what do you mean she didn't show up to school? I've spoke about Liz, how she was always very responsible. She was, if she felt sick or anything, she would let me know. If she needed to go somewhere, she would let me know. So it wasn't like her. I immediately started panicking and I called my friend. I said, hey, Lizbeth is missing. Please come help me find her. And the typical friend, he's like, you're crazy. She's fine. She's gonna appear. She's probably with a couple friends and she'll be back. Just relax. And I said, no, her friends are not with her. And she was always a girl who did have a lot of friends, but she only had a really small circle. It was always the same 3-4 friends that she hung out with. So I said, no, they were at the parade and they were asking for her as well. While I was talking to him, I walked into the restroom. And as I'm talking to him, I don't know why, but I turned to my side. And at the corner of my eye, I seen her foot sticking out from the bathtub, from the curtains. And that's when I just kind of I opened the curtains. And that's when I found her. I knew she was gone the moment I found her because of her color. Her eyes, I just remember, that's one thing I'll never forget is looking into her eyes, and the life was just not in her eyes anymore. And I remember trying to pull her out of the tub and say, Liz, what did you do? What did you do? Because automatically I didn't think that somebody had done something to her. I thought maybe she did something to herself. And so I started screaming, what did you do? What did you do? And as I was trying to pull her out, I couldn't. And I checked her hands. I looked at her hands. There was nothing there. And I looked down and I seen a stab wound finally on her stomach area. And that's when I decided, don't touch her. Like I don't know how, but I kind of composed myself and I dialed 911. And after that, it's very, very blurry. I called my sister and I told her what had happened, that Lizzo was gone. And I think they didn't understand what I was saying. I guess they didn't process it at the time that I was gone, that she was gone. They were like, well, what hospital is she in? And I said, no, she's gone. She's gone. And it's a very traumatic thing. And that's an image that I live with on a daily basis, even though, like, sometimes I wish I didn't have to see that, but it's in my brain. It's there. After that, I remember they told me, you got to go outside. So I was outside for a little bit, and then they started questioning me. I think we left to the police station around 1 a.m. Once they took Lizbeth's body from the apartment, they took me to the police station and they got the basic questioning done. I remember leaving there and I guess I was still in shock. I didn't understand she was gone. I didn't understand that part. I knew she was gone. I didn't know how to process that. And being so far from my family, from everybody, I guess the only people that could really run to me were my friends, and they were only coworkers. So it's not like they knew me to the T, right? They were just coworkers. But we considered each other family because, we're work family. We're family that's always on the road and we're always together. So, I mean, I'm very appreciative for them, but it took what felt to me as an eternity for my family to get there. And it was only was it, Angie, like a 12-hour drive? Yeah, so
They're pretty far from you.
Yeah, they were in Nebraska and I was of course I was here in Texas, so everyone was far. My parents were at the time, I think they were in Minnesota, so it was a farther drive for them. So yeah, it was very, very hard for me at the time. I had no one really. I didn't understand how to process it. My mind took me everywhere. I didn't know who it was. We had only been in Edna for a year and a half, so I didn't understand who could have done that. Mm-hmm. My mind went everywhere. What if it was, I mentioned Liz was feisty and a fighter, so she could have gotten enemies that way, or maybe a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and I should mention ex-boyfriend, because her boyfriend at the time, Derek, he was a sweetheart. He was an amazing person, and I got to meet him towards the end, and he was always an amazing kid, pushing and striving to do better things. So, when everything happened to the police, we were all suspects, and it's understandable. But I knew for a fact her friends would never, ever hurt her. They were a small circle, and of course, I would never hurt my own daughter. So it was very, very emotional and very difficult to go through, to be questioned, to be looked at. And like I mentioned before, especially with the media, they tore us up completely. So yeah, that day was very, very difficult. I think the whole month was very difficult for all of us.
Do you think that specifically after the publication of her being killed in your home, was it instantaneously that the media, well, that the public in general were pointing fingers at you from the beginning, or did it take a while for people to assume that?
I think it was like instantly. And a lot of people blamed me, and just by hearing and seeing a lot of the comments, because I was a single mother, and because what if I had a boyfriend, or what if I was jealous of her, or they didn't know the strong bond that me and my daughter shared. So I get it, there are terrible parents, but that wasn't the case with me and Liz. That was very hurtful for people to not allow us to grieve as a family, but put the blame on us, who we were already hurting terribly. And it was just very, very difficult.
Do you think that everything changed once the video came out of the case on I think it's law and crime? Do you think that the response of that video changed people's perspective of how you were, that people actually like empathize with you for being, a mourning mother, instead of pointing fingers at you as a suspect?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, people have to feel and see things for themselves in order to actually believe something. Unfortunately, we live in a world where if I don't see it, I don't believe it. But even when they caught this man, they even went as far as saying, that's not even the right person. That doesn't even look like the person in the picture or in the video, or, and so it was very, very difficult. And as unfortunate as it sounds, I was okay with the video being out, because I told my sister, she was upset about it. And I said, you know what, Anna, as bad as it sounds, people needed to see this.
Yeah.
To understand our pain, to understand what we knew and we lived with, because from the beginning we knew what was going on. We knew the evidence that was that the police department had. We knew a lot, yet we decided not to say anything to protect the case. And there was moments where I wish I could just yell it out and scream to the world, this is who they have. This is how we know it was him. This is the evidence there is. But it took a lot. It took a lot for us to just shut it down. And I told my sister, one day, everyone who spoke ill on us and our family and on me will regret that.
Definitely.
Because the truth will come out. The truth always comes out to light. And it finally did. And that video definitely did help.
Que la gente habla nomás por hablar, right? They just start pointing fingers. And I remember watching a video where they were even saying about you, Jackie, like the comments, que, oh, the mom lo hizo because, she's not even crying. Like, look at her doing this interview and she doesn't even show that she's mourning or hurting. And it's like, who are you to say this about a parent? You don't know how she is behind closed doors, right? She's trying to find justice for her daughter. She's trying to put herself out there to find this person. And that's infuriating.
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, I would have been tore up, or I would have been this, I would have been that. You don't know that because you've never been through it. I'm a very strong person, and I think my life from a very young age basically prepared me for this, because I went through so much as a young child, as a young teenager, as a young mom. So many heartaches that I was kind of numb to feeling and to showing. A lot of people that actually know me personally, and even my sister, everybody always says, Jackie, you're like very cold. And I'm not a cold person. I don't like to show my emotions, I don't like to cry. And I think when my daughter passed, I think that's one of the times a lot of my family saw me cry for the first time. Because I'm not a crier. I'm not a person who shows a lot of emotion. Unless I'm pissed off, then then
then it's a different story.
yeah.
No, I mean, and I think that's a lot of people's assumptions. I've seen a lot of cases, especially doing this podcast for as long as that we've done it, that a lot of people jump to conclusions and start pointing the finger at the family of them being at fault because they're not showing emotions. And I think for us, at least when we cover these cases, we always try our best to say these are the things that they're saying, but we have to take it into accountability that not everybody mourns the same. Some people mourn behind closed doors, or some people are very emotional and will show their emotion whenever they have a chance to do so. And then sometimes they bottle up those emotions until the point that it erupts into like rage and anger and other feelings. So for at least when Ali had told the case during the episode, I remember being like, what do you mean? Why are people pointing the finger at her? Like, she's a mom that's mourning. Just because she's not showing emotion doesn't mean she doesn't have them. It just means that her focus is somewhere else. So I'm
And I remember I'm sorry. I remember people asking, why is she doing interviews? Why is she in front of a camera? Well, a lot of people don't understand what was going on behind the scenes. The reason why I decided to do interviews, and this is something I've never said on any interview or anything like that, but it's fair to say now, is that I was afraid that my daughter's case was not going to be resolved. I felt like if we don't put enough eyes on this, if we don't put enough pressure, if we don't, put the word out for people to help us. Edna is such a small town. I didn't think they had enough resources to be able to find this person. And being a crime and investigations fanatic, you always think, well, I don't want to be one of those cold cases.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I thought, like, I'm not gonna allow this to be that. And I feel like the police department and did an amazing job along with the Texas Rangers, but I feel like the pressure from the media also helped when it came to the community, not only in the community, but the surroundings. So I feel like a lot of people were going to try to help to find this person or try to figure out what happened. And that was my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I feel like a lot of people don't understand the power that social media and the outlets and media and any sort of form of publication helps a case. I think for the most part, people assume that, you just want attention, but yes, the attention comes from the public being interested in the case and putting it in, kind of putting it up to the detectives and pushing them to solve it. A lot of old cases start getting, momentum because people become interested in them and pushing the authorities to find these people that committed these murders. So I completely understand why you want to put more eyes into the case and more people aware of it, because that's the only way to get justice. And we've seen cases over and over and over again being unfairly ruled or not get the proper attention, and then the case just, there's no end to it. There's no real solution to it. So it's understandable why you would want to talk and to not become another cold case. So I really do condone you and Angie and your everybody for putting those eyes on Lizbeth's case, because without it, if you didn't have such a fighting family, who knows where the case would have been. And that's truly, truly tragic.
Yeah. And it was amazing how much attention the case got from the beginning. And one of those reasons was because, I was terribly broken, and Angie can attest. There was times where I couldn't even get out of bed. Like, I was so weak. I couldn't even stand. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking water. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep for the longest time. And I told my family, you know, if I can't do it, if I don't have the energy, if I can't take an interview, you're doing it, you know. And Angie and Anna did an amazing job of that, you know, jumping in when I couldn't.
Would you mind sharing, Angie, a little bit like on like your side of it? How it was for you when you found out?
Of course. That day I got the call from my cousin Priscilla. I was at the store actually, and she didn't necessarily tell me right away. She had asked for me to come home. I heard her voice really weird, and I'm like, I know when she's been crying, like you can tell when someone has been crying. And I'm like, yeah, like what's going on? Like, why do I need to come home? You know, I was at the store, and she's like, oh, it's because we don't want to leave. One of my other cousins, she was my roommate, and she was there when I later found out that she was there when Jackie had called. So she had heard she actually answered the phone for my Aunt Anna when Jackie had called, and she was very shooken up, and you know, so she's like, we don't want to leave her alone at the house because we're going to go to Texas. And I'm like, Texas? Like, why are you going to Texas? And she's like, we just found out that they killed Liz. And that's all she said. And I'm like, Liz? Like, obviously the only Liz I know is Lizbeth, right? So I'm like, what are you saying to me right now? Priscilla, like, what are you talking about? Like, I was just so, like, in shock. And I remember I was actually at Five Below staring. I remember exactly where I was. I was staring, like, at these little toys because I was with my little cousin. She had asked me to take her to Five Below. And just all of my blood just went to my feet. You get this, like, dizzy sensation. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, literalmente, like, la sangre fría. That's literally how I can explain it. And she's like, yes, like, my aunt just called and someone killed Liz. And that's all she said. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I'm on my way. And I remember just leaving the cart full of stuff, trying to, like, not freak out my little cousin, but, like, also she was catching on, like, that something was wrong. And instead of going straight home, I ended up going to my uncle's house to drop my little cousin off. But then Anna and her family were already there. They had gone over to his house to ask for his truck so they can take that to Texas. And I mean, everyone was just so in shock. I just found everyone, like, distraught, crying. And in the moment, I feel like it didn't hit me, like, right? Like, I was just more in, like, assessment mode, like, let me see what I can do. And then I try to get more information, but obviously, like Jackie says, like, they didn't know exactly what was going on either, and the only thing that was on their mind was getting to Texas. We were kind of debating if to leave the kids here, or they were debating, and I let them know, like, whatever they decided, we were, you know, I'm like, I can take care of the kids, it doesn't matter. But my aunt wanted the kids to go with, and just something in me was like, I need to go with them. And I told them, it was funny because I told Jackie this because, like, it's weird how everything kind of happens. I remember I was in between jobs. So I was going to start a new job that week or a couple days after. And I remember, like, not even thinking twice about it. I'm like, you know what? If they wanted to give me that job, then when I get back, then cool. Like, it just nothing hesitated in me to just drop everything and go with him. And I told them, like, yeah, I'm going with you guys. And it was a little debate too of, like, my aunt was like, no, like, you have work. I'm like, yeah, I'm not working right now. Like, literally, I'm, like, just at home. I'm like, I'm going. And it was just something that told me, like, so they need como una cabeza fría. Like, and as in fría, I meant it as in, like, not that I'm not close, but it's like, for me, when I go through crisis, I turn into a helping mode.
Like solution focus, right?
Yeah, and I think that has to do with why I'm now an advocate and at a crisis center, because my thoughts were just like, I just need to be there for them in any way I can. If that's just taking care of the kids, well, but we just had to go. And that was kind of our, like Jackie says, our main focus was just getting to Jackie as soon as possible. I remember we probably got the call, they got the call like at 5:36. We were on the road by 10, the latest. And I remember packing, and, like, it's weird with the little moments you remember. I remember packing and just not really caring what I was putting in my bag. And I'm like, I don't even know how long I'm going to be there. Like, I don't even know what to pack. And, like, we just wanted to leave. Like, that was just kind of our urgency, and knowing that we just had to get there. But I feel like for me, it didn't really hit me until, like, the way there, and realizing, like, those silent moments of, like, we were just all in a car going to Texas, and for a reason that we didn't want to be. But also, like I said, just not the unknown was so scary and everything, really. And then once we got there, when I first saw Jackie, like, it's nothing that I ever wish anyone would experience as a mom, but also as like a loved one, because I don't know, I feel like you never want to see your loved one like we did. We saw Jackie that day, and just knowing that she was alone, knowing that she didn't have anyone, just broke us, and it was just so hard to see your loved one like that. And the only thing I wanted to do was just to help in any way I could. But you're so helpless in those moments. Like, I really didn't know how to help, and we felt so helpless. And how I was explaining to you guys on Sunday, like, Jackie wasn't there that whole week. Genuinely, she might have been doing interviews and she might have been talking to the camera, but she wasn't there. And you could really see that behind the scenes, like you guys said, in those closed doors, in those moments. Like, we literally had to force her to eat, force her to drink, and it's just so hard because you're in an environment where you're unfamiliar. I remember we were at a hotel and we were kind of all on edge just for the same reasons of not knowing who it was. We had so many questions, just like Jackie says, like, who could have done this? Especially to a 16-year-old girl, like, with no real enemies. Like, it was something, your mind just goes everywhere. It goes from, yeah, one of her friends did it, to maybe just someone tried to rob. Maybe we even thought it was a cartel at one point. Like, your mind just goes everywhere and anywhere. And it was just so hard those few days of, like, the unknown, the not knowing. And for me, like Jackie says, maybe the scariest part was just that, the unresolvedness, like, knowing, like, we can't leave Texas until this is resolved. Because, again, we know the pressure of the media and of the outlets help. But at that point, like I said, we didn't know how long it was going to take. And it was just so scary. And it's just one of those things where, for me, I feel like the hardest part wasn't, like, my own grief, but seeing everyone else and my family and, like I said, just Jackie and like, me for the longest time. I did bottle it up. Like you guys say, you guys show emotions differently. For me, I bottled it all up. I bottled it up all that week, all that month, because I'm like, I know Jackie needs me, like I said, to do interviews. I know she needs me to answer phone calls. I know she needs me to do just anything, right, that I can to help. Like, we set up the Facebook page. We were sharing things on TikTok. We were sharing things on Facebook. We were keeping not only the Edna community and everyone else updated, but also our Nebraska family, our Nebraska community. And it's something that you don't think about when you're grieving, because it's not normal, right? You shouldn't be on social media when you're grieving. You shouldn't be doing all these things, but it has to be done, or else no one's going to do it for you. And like I said, I knew the family didn't have that strength in that moment. And I'm like, okay, then I'm that person. I'm going to be doing this for them. And like Jackie says, people were questioning, why are you doing interviews? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I would always tell them, like, as long as Jackie wants to do it, I'm right behind her. And that's the only thing, like, that was on my mind. But like I said, it was hard because, like I said, we did have the kids. We did have the other family members. And how do you explain that to the kids? How do you make sure they're okay, make sure Jackie's okay, make sure everyone's kind of okay in these moments, and you don't let your grief kind of get to you? And I didn't for the longest time. And I feel like for me, my grief happened way after the fact. And that's what people don't realize, is it happens after. It kind of comes to the realization, and it's kind of like a crashing wave of, not only because the case is resolved, or not only because we have laid her to rest, or not only because of all these things have already happened, doesn't mean you stop grieving. It continues on. Like, for me, those days were just scary. And I always explain it to, like, it was the longest week of my life. I think it was actually 5 days, 10 days. Again, I tend to forget, but the longest, but also the shortest. I feel like everything happens so quickly, but also so slowly. And it's one of those things where it's hard to remember too.
Yeah, I mean, we have mentioned that usually grief does come in waves, where 1 minute you're fine, you're going through life doing the quote-unquote normal things, and then out of nowhere it hits you, wait a second, that happened. And it's also part of, the trauma that you guys had gone through, especially being so far away from each other. Jackie, having to find Lizbeth the way that she did, and then still trying to find the person that did this to Lizbeth. So I think overall, the grief never really stopped, and I don't think it ever really will stop. because it's always it's a wave. You'll be fine and then it'll come back. But sometimes, you know, that current isn't going to be as strong as it once was, but you know, it's still going to remain with you for, you know, for the rest of your life. It just evolves eventually to a different thing. But going back to the main point about the case, I remember when we were talking on Sunday that Jackie, you had mentioned that basically watching the video that came out and kind of remembering things that happened that day of him being questioned and investigated in the home, you started to put pieces together and like kind of add the missing puzzle pieces. Can you go a little bit in depth into what that felt like for you in that moment?
Watching the video was surreal. Hearing the phone call, of course, a lot of it was not added. There's a lot of things that were missing from that video, but you know, you kind of get an idea of what happened that day. Watching it from like an outsider's view, it took me right back to that day, and it really made me see what was going on behind the scenes. I just remember looking or watching the video and seeing, okay, well, when they arrived to the house, I was getting a text message from law enforcement saying, hey, we got him. And then, you know, when they took him in, and when they were in the house looking for things and stuff, you know, they sent me pictures. Hey, is this your stuff? Do you recognize this? They took a picture of my daughter's wallet that they had found in his room. And while this was popping up in the video and I was watching it, I was remembering, oh, they sent me the picture of her wallet when they found it. And they sent me this when they found it. And it was just me putting everything together. And in the moment, you know, when they're interviewing him, that he finally says that he's the one who took my daughter's life, that's when I got the text message and saying, we got him, he confessed, you know, 2:00 in the morning. And watching all that in real time, as you know, I remembered I was at the hotel room. I couldn't sleep, wondering what's going on. You know, all that happened the day of the vigil. So it was already an emotional day. And then, you know, it became very scary when we got her boyfriend and her friend saying, hey, he's answering our text messages. And it just went on and on from there. So just watching it play in the video, kind of like I learned things that I didn't even know. You know, there's some things that were in that journal that were never told to me, like the fact that he had keys to my apartment, that he was going to go back. I was never told that. I just learned that a couple weeks ago when that video came out.
He had keys of your apartment?
Yeah, that's one of the quotes in the book, saying that he had keys, he was going to go back and put cameras in.
Yeah, I remember seeing those parts of in the video, and then
that he wanted to see like people changing, right? Like changing, like let's get
that's why he wanted to put cameras in there. It's crazy because when I remember watching it and thinking, this is hard for me as as somebody from the outside to see this. I can't even imagine you as a mother and you as like her cousin witnessing that, and how, you know, this monster was doing these things. And I really, you know, admire you for having the strength to watch it, because I know it's very difficult to reopen those wounds again. But that investigation was very hard to watch, for sure.
No parent should go through this.
Yeah, and watching that video kind of gave me some of the answers that I needed to know, because I always question myself, like, okay, so why did they want to go back to the apartment? You know, because they would ask me, hey, can we get the key to the apartment? We're gonna go back in. I think they asked for it like 3 times, and one of the times I went with them, and they were looking in the vents, and I was questioning, okay, so what are we doing? Why are we looking in the vents? And watching the video and remembering why we were looking in the vents kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, oh, they were looking to see if he ever put cameras in.
Okay.
So, you know, just a lot of things kind of like, you know, I understand why the law enforcement never told me a lot, but, you know, just watching that video kind of put everything together for me. And, you know, one of the things I didn't mention was when they took that man back to the apartment. It was crazy because there was a lot of law enforcement in the area at that time, of course. He had a bulletproof vest and all that, and there was a lot of law enforcement. So the day that happened, I don't know if you remember, Angie, but the day that happened, we were traveling to Nebraska to bury my daughter because she's buried in Nebraska. So we took her to Nebraska, and we were traveling when that happened. And it was crazy. People are just so disgusting and crazy, where people were posting on Facebook saying, "Oh, the police are at the mother's apartment. They're arresting her."
Wow.
And I was like,
the assumptions are wild.
Yeah, it's disturbing. And I was like, I am hundreds and hundreds of miles away burying my daughter. Like, you guys don't even know what's really going on.
Yeah.
But
like, people don't
watching
think. Like,
that part
like come on, like they don't they think like usan people behind screens, they're so brave, right? They can say anything. It's like, it's like, oh, mom's not crying enough. Mom is doing too many interviews. Oh, why isn't mom speaking up? It's like, this is not to make none of you happy. This is for the family and for Liz. Like, it wasn't meant to make anyone happy or anything. It's for the family. It's like, nunca quedan contentos.
No, it's kind of like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
Like,
but did they ever find out if he knew her, or if he knew Liz, if he was stalking her? Did he meet her?
So yeah, there was investigations, and of course I wanted to know. I wanted to know for a fact, and I always questioned law enforcement. So did he know her? And when rumors were to come up, and media kind of helped in that way, where people like to create rumors, I was also investigating on my behalf. If people on the media would say, oh, it looks like the mom must have known him because he was in construction clothes. And I didn't even know that. I didn't even know he had a Facebook or whatever. And so I went on there and I looked, and I was like, what if? We can't say no. The possibility wasn't there that maybe he knew me and he followed me and he stalked us that way. So I started doing my own investigation and asking coworkers, asking foremen, asking superintendents, do you recognize this man? Did he ever work with us? He was undocumented. So maybe he worked with a different alias, different name.
Yeah.
So I questioned everybody and I said, does he look familiar? Have y'all seen him? Both at the job sites that I had worked in the area. I asked everybody that was in leadership and management, have y'all seen him? Do you recognize him? And everybody said no. So, as those things came out, I was also doing my side of investigating. And I always wanted to know for sure, like, how did he get to us? How did he find us? He gave a lot of different stories, and one of his stories was that he was with an uncle, and that uncle was doing remodeling, and the apartments across the street from us had burnt down, and so they went to go check those out, and that's how they saw us. And that was one of the stories. Then his other story was he was looking for drugs in the apartment complex, but I mean, a lot of his stories did not make sense, It just different stories each time. And so I know for a fact investigators looked into it, and she didn't know him. There was nothing, no digital footprint saying, they knew each other from Facebook or Instagram or nothing. Their social media is nothing. I don't know exactly the story, and we will never know because there was no trial. There was nothing that can give me those answers to exactly how he found us, how he got to us. I will never know.
Yeah.
But he was stalking us. He mentioned he had been in our apartment at least 3 times.
Wow.
Was what they had said, and I had no clue. So it just shows that no matter how vigilant you are, sometimes you don't really know what's going on around you. It's just a part of being aware of your surroundings, and even when you are, because I used to think I really was, and obviously that wasn't the case.
Well, cuando quieren encuentran la manera. They'll find the way.
Yeah,
exactly. And I feel like not having those answers also kind of is hard for us, because you don't know how to be safe, right? Like, we don't know if, let's be more vigilant, be more this, be more that. It's like, and that's the scary part of like a random person who wants to do harm is able to. And that's something that not only us as a family has had to like adjust with and like cope with, because we are now looking over our shoulders. We are now like, if someone is parked outside, if someone's staring at us too long, like we are now literally scared. Our lives have done such a 360 that not only just us but the kiddos, right? They always want to make sure all the doors are locked. They always are super hyper aware of things now, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's also not fun to live that way either.
Yeah.
So not having a trial kind of like, again, just robbed us from a lot of answers and concrete things that we needed for that grieving process and for us to be able to live our lives, but we would never get those answers, and I feel like that's hard too.
Yeah, and I feel like the fact that he was stalking us and I didn't know, I didn't see it. It haunts me till this day because I'm different when it comes to being out in public now. It's harder for me, just because it's like, okay, it happened to me already. People are crazy. People are gonna stalk you if they want to. And, I'm constantly, if I hear a noise coming from outside, I start panicking. I start freaking out. Things start just popping into my head. And, I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of the public decided that, it must have been someone she knew. It must have been her mom. It must have been a boyfriend or someone she knew, because people don't want to realize and accept the fact that strangers can do this to you. That's
100%.
just it's like a safety mechanism in your brain that says, oh, that's not possible. That
Yeah.
can't happen.
I think also that a lot of people assumed that it was somebody that she knew because there was no, like, I guess not real struggle, but there wasn't like anything that caught you off guard from the beginning or gave you any assumption that somebody
Like,
was
no forced
stalking you,
entry.
or that you or there was like no forced entry, that this person had keys to the apartment, so it's like he had all this planned already. He already had this like routine of how to get into the home, so it wasn't unfamiliar. But like for people didn't know that, so I'm just like, you guys all assumed that she knew him, or that you knew him, or it was an ex-boyfriend or somebody that she talked to or whatever. But it's like it's only assumptions, and I think that's one of the hardest things that has to do with people that enjoy true crime and enjoy these like stories, not as as just a spectator, but like to make your own conclusions, to make it all make sense. But at the same time, it's like, no, this is just a person that nobody knew, but somehow you were targeted by him. And this was this week's episode. This is the first part of our conversation with Jacqueline and Angie. Next week, we will be covering part 2 of this interview, and we will get a little bit more deeper when it comes to the court cases and how they're carrying Lizbeth's legacy into the activism that Angie is doing, and a possible scholarship I think that they're doing. So they'll get into it next week. But for now, we will leave you with that part of the conversation. And again, we want to hear your comments regarding this case. I know it's a long episode, and like we kind of covered many topics within this episode, but we would love to know what you have to say about it. I know the topics on this case were a little bit controversial when it comes to like people assuming many things about Jackie and her doing interviews and being very vocal about the case, but we want to hear your opinion. We want to hear what you have to say, what your thoughts are, and how society pick and choose what they would back up when it comes to the case. We're really interested in what you have to say, because hearing, I guess, the other side of a family member and seeing their point of view of how people were judging them throughout this case, it was very eye-opening. So we would love to know what you guys think. And
be kind.
Very, very kind, please. Like Jacqueline said in this episode, she would read comments on like Facebook and like different outlets. So please be kind. We just want you guys to respect her family, and most of all, respect Lizbeth and her memory. I know that we all are entitled to our own opinion, but at the same time, we can do it very respectfully as well. But yeah, we want to know what you guys think, your thoughts regarding this episode, and anything else?
That is it.
No. So we will see you guys next week for that, for part 2.
The family for
do
doing this interview with us.
We do. We want to thank Jackie for being so open and being so welcoming when it comes to talking about the case. We know how difficult it was for her, and for Angie as well. We want to thank Angie for reaching out to us and setting this whole thing up. I know that it was taking a lot of back and forth when it came to setting up a date and a conversation. And overall, we're really, really grateful for connecting with her and connecting with Jackie. And getting to know them and getting to know Lizbeth through them.
Right.
And
yeah, because we only all know what the articles say, right? And whatever the outlets put out there. So we really got to know who she was.
Yeah, through her mom and through Angie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was wonderful. So we want to thank both of them so much for taking the time out of their day to talk to us and answer our questions, and just overall just being so vulnerable and talking about a very, very tough subject. And with that, we want to say, if you want to listen to the rest of the 166 episodes that we have, you go to our Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you stream podcasts. Just type in Sobre, podcast, and it should pop up. Our whole discography, our whole catalog.
You really want us to do
an
album?
Do.
You really do. You really do.
I
don't know what you want me to do, but
out of nowhere, Harry Styles drops an album, and I want to sing. I know. But you can see our whole catalog on our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you stream podcasts. And if it's not in your preference platform, please let us know so we can do our magic and send them your way. If you want to see the video portion of this episode, you can go on YouTube and type in Soy Violentos Macabro Podcast. Again, Soy Violentos Macabro Podcast. Make sure it's us and not the music video. And or you can type SVSM_podcast and we should pop up, and our whole video portion of it, the audio portion should be there too, as well as our shorts. You can comment there, leave likes, and subscribe. It would help us a lot. Also, if you want to talk to us, talk to each other, our social media platforms are open. You can go on our Instagram, our TikTok, our Threads, our Twitter, which is X as it's known now, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky. I think we still have it. I haven't posted it in a while, but Blue Sky. Just type in at SVSM_podcast, or on Facebook, type Soy Violentos Macabro Podcast, and it should come up, and our whole platform should be open to you guys. Make sure to follow, leave comments, all that good stuff, and we'll reach out back. Oh yeah, and subscribe to our YouTube. and just talk to us and we will reply. I know we've been out of posting for a while.
Yeah, we haven't been posting for a while, but we're back. We're here.
and it's been taking us a while to get a hold of this interview. So it took us a while, but we finally got through it, and now we're editing it, and now you're listening to it. So thank you so much for your patience and for waiting and for being so kind. And we hope you enjoy this conversation. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. And that'll be all for this week. If you have any suggestions on any other episode, let us know. Our platforms are open. And until next week, have Have a great weekend, guys.
Adios.
Bye. Stay spooky.
Bye.